Drew, Eldon, and Kathy, are we ready to go?
I think so.
I'm ready.
Great. We'll call this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome everybody here on the 19th of May for our Planning Commission. And we'll like to start it off with our invocation by Corey Anderson and then a Pledge of Allegiance by Pete Bullock.
Father in heaven, we're grateful for many blessings. We're grateful to be here at Planning Commission and to serve the city and the residents of Washington City. Help us so we can have sound minds, good judgment. In the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm Commissioner Schill. I am filling in tonight for our leader, Jason Hansen, Commissioner Hansen. He's out of town, so I'm new at this, so bear with me just a little bit. We'll get through it though. Appreciate the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. And first on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for tonight's meeting. And if somebody,
Agenda.
what's that?
Approval of the agenda.
Yeah, approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. So I'm looking for a motion of that after everybody's reviewed it.
This is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we approve the minute or the agenda for this evening's meeting, May 19th, 2021.
This is Commissioner Bullock, I second.
We have a first or a motion and a second. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our May 5th Planning Commission meeting. Review those and I look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Musso again. I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the prior meeting, which was on
May 5th.
May 5th.
Commissioner Bullock, I second.
We have a motion and a second. All agreeable, say yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is declaration of abstention and conflicts of anything on tonight's meeting. Are there any conflicts for tonight's meeting with any planner?
No.
All good. Okay, we'll move on to number 4A. 4A is a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for a plat amendment for Stamsund Estates preliminary plat located approximately 300 East Skyview Drive. The purpose of the amendment is to create 5 new lots along the southern portion of the original lot 14. The applicant is Bill Cox. With that, we'll turn the time over to Drew or Eldon. Is that correct?
Correct. Thanks, Commissioner. The applicant is requesting approval of an amended final plat for the Stamsund Estates amended subdivision. It's located at approximately 380 East and 390 South. The reason for the amendment is to create 5 new lots on the southern portion of Lot 14. These 5 lots are accessible off of Skyview Drive. Staff has reviewed the proposed amended final plat and finds finds it conforms to the designated zoning for this area. The subdivision also remains in compliance with the subdivision ordinance of the city. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the amended final plat for the Stamsund Estates amended subdivision to the City Council based on the following original findings and subject to the following original conditions. Staff did meet with the applicant this afternoon, and we will be adding a sixth condition on this report, if approved tonight, taken on to the City Council, which will state a block wall on the east, north, and west side of the 5 lots will be incorporated into the plan. I guess I would just ask if you guys do motion to approve this, that you would incorporate that 6th condition into your motion. And we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions for Eldon? For staff? Whoops, eyes off. Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions for staff?
So this is Commissioner Musso. So Eldon, was there any changes from the preliminary plat to this plat?
Yes, the preliminary plat only showed lot 14, and we are amending these 5 into the final plat.
Okay. Do we have to have a public hearing on this then?
Yes.
Okay, so we need to put up for comment then.
Eldon, are we doing a amended final plat? Is that what we're doing?
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
I don't have questions.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and so I'd like to open that up for public hearing now. Is there any in chambers that have any questions or comments for staff on this? Appears not. Well, I guess we have a hand up. Would you come forward, state your name, talk clearly in the microphone so that can be recorded? Thank you.
My name's Kevin Williams, and I live on the corner of White Sands and Indian Springs. So I think the proposed wall would be,
I think,
Ro-
excuse me, you're on the wrong,
yeah.
we're not on that one yet.
oh,
This
wrong
is,
property.
Yes,
On
sorry.
property.
I'm sorry, I thought this was the one we were talking about tonight. Okay,
no, it's coming up.
okay,
Yeah, it's coming.
my fault.
You're good. We just want you to exercise. Okay, with that, no other comments, and we had none that were emailed or,
This is Commissioner Anderson. I guess just one minor comment is just, I'm assuming Eldon, and I guess for the applicant as well, this is getting carved off of the St. George Academy land, right?
Mhm.
So I'm assuming, I would think it'd be obvious, but assuming that the school has all the land and space and everything that it needs, that this is not cutting into anything that it should have. I guess that's my only question.
That's correct. Yeah, everything will stay as put with the academy. No adjustments on that portion of it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're still in a public hearing, so we need to have a motion and a second to close that public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing. Commissioner Anderson, I second.
Have a motion and a second. All approval, say aye.
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 Thank you. With that in mind, is there any other comments from commissioners for staff regarding this? If not, I look for a motion.
So Eldon, this is Commissioner Musso. Would you review what your last item was again so I can write it down correctly?
Yeah, no problem. A block wall, a CMU block wall will be built along the east, north, and west property lines.
Is that a 6-foot high wall?
Correct. Yeah, 9 courses, 6 foot. Anything I can clear up on that?
So, okay, so this is Commissioner Musso. I make a motion that we approve the amended final plat for Samsung Estates amended subdivision located approximately 380 east, 3090 south, and that this be sent on to the city council for approval with the following conditions that are stated as in the staff report, in addition to condition number 6, that being that there's a block wall that will be built on the north, east, and west boundaries that's 9 courses high around the property.
Okay, I have a motion.
This is Commissioner Bullock. Second.
I have a motion and a second on item 4A. Let's have a roll call. Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Bullock,
Aye.
I'm Shill, and I'm an I also. Item 4A passes unanimously, and that moves on to the city council. We'll move on to item number 5A, which is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the city council for the Desert Ridge Phase 1 preliminary plat located at approximately Bella Vista. And it says Bonnie Lane, but I'd say it's 200 South. Applicant is Stephen Howcroft. And we'll turn the time over to Eldon, I think.
Thanks, Commissioner. The applicant is requesting approval of a preliminary plat for Desert Ridge Phase 1 subdivision, which is located at Bella Vista Drive and approximately 200 South. The applicant is proposing 49 townhomes on an area of coverage of 6.97 acres, which is a 7.03 density units per acre. The zoning designation at this particular location is planned unit development residential. The surrounding zoning is planned unit development residential to the north, east, south, and west. The proposed subdivision conforms to the approved zoning. The request meets the subdivision requirements and other city ordinances as it relates to this location. Staff has reviewed the request and recommends approval with conditions of the preliminary plat as outlined. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the preliminary plat for the Mangata. I apologize, that's a typo there, for the Desert Ridge Phase 1 subdivision to the City Council based on the following findings and subject to the following standard conditions. And staff is happy to answer any questions at this time.
So Eldon, this is Commissioner Musso. So that's just a single loaded road all the way along that area?
Correct.
So do they own the property to the north? Or is that somebody else that owns that property?
There is a piece to the northwest corner that is included in the PUD.
Not directly across the street?
I am not sure on that piece.
Sorry, I'm going to jump in if that's okay. I got the little history. This area where my red pin is drawing,
Right.
this is owned by the same developer. This area over here is the Turners. Of course, you know, it's their RV. You know, so I'll just put a T on that one for the Turners where the RV storage is, but this area here is by the same developer at the moment. Here with the stars. And that was approved a while back as an apartment complex. Or, yeah, apartment complex.
So we're assuming that road's going to be developed on both sides and at some point, correct?
Yeah, you can actually see the design here. Sorry, Eldon, I don't mean to jump all over you're doing this, but I'll just, you can kind of see how they've put the design out here with the meandering sidewalk. And it's got special parking in it, kind of like what they did on Santa Clara, where you have that, you drive into it a little bit. Or on Main Street here that we redid Main Street. That's what will be on the north side.
So is that what's serving for excess parking then in this development then, Drew, currently?
No, sorry, I'm trying to find out where I'm. Why'd this kick me so far back? No, that's not where the extra parking's coming from. If you look down, we're gonna let them use this amenity areas kind of overflow. But do you notice how long those driveways are? They look a little elongated, I hope, to all of you.
Well, they look elongated.
They're 50 feet because there's a power easement that runs right through there. So you'll be able to fit 6 to 8 cars per driveway. So I'm not so much worried about extra parking, I guess, on this thing.
That's nice.
Any other comments from the planners? This is a public hearing, so I'd like to open this up to a public hearing. At this time, I saw one come in through email, and I hope everybody had a chance to read that. Came in today. Yeah. Okay. You want me to read it? Eldon, should I read it? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
It just reads, this is from Mike Miller of Green Springs. And he just says, I live in Horizon West, a neighborhood adjacent to the Desert Ridge Phase 1 preliminary plat. I'd like to see a time constraint placed on the start and stop times of construction. Yeah, okay. Namely, the construction to be limited to hours between 7 and 7 a.m. and p.m. I would prefer not to hear construction noise and the backup beeps sound of construction delivery trucks and concrete trucks as they make deliveries and carry on other support roles for this project. I believe that's a regulation for the city. Is that correct? And so I think that should,
No, Commissioner,
yep.
it's not.
Oh,
The city doesn't have a time limit on that kind of operation. They decided years ago, even though I tried some 14 years ago, but still to this day, there is no time limit on it. They just ask that everybody be considerate and courteous. And here we are still 14 years later. So Brandon, go ahead.
Brandon Wright with Public Works. For the civil end, for the construction of the road and the infrastructure, our standards and specifications, there is a time limit on there, 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So we do have that for that end of it.
I've seen it in other cities and I just took it for granted we had it here, but it's all, sorry.
You can't pour concrete in the afternoon in St. George in the summer.
There's a variance they
Right,
can
okay,
ask for,
yeah.
but they have to do it the correct way and get a
On
variance
the
when it
civil
gets
side.
approved. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
On his side, it's mostly streets and sewer and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, we've mentioned and noted Mike Miller's concern, and so that's on record. Is there anybody in the congregation that has any comments to this item for Desert Ridge Phase 1? Doesn't appear to be, so I look for a motion to close this public hearing.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
This is Musso, I second it.
And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Is there any other comments for staff regarding this Desert Ridge Phase 1 preliminary plat? If not, I look for a motion.
This is Commissioner Anderson, just, I guess, more of a question for the engineer, Austin. I mean, how big are the units here? What do we look, they're all duplex and triplexes?
Please state your name and talk clearly. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Austin Chapel with Horrocks Engineers. Thanks for the question, Corey. They are primarily triplex units. There are a couple of duplex units where a triplex wasn't able to fit in the space available. Square footage wise, Royce, do you happen to know what your square footage is? Per unit? About 1,700 square feet per unit.
Are they two-story? All of them are two-story?
Yes, they will be two-story.
Is this in the same, this isn't the same location where there's the sign that says condos coming or whatever? Is that
That's on the north side.
That's
That's
on
on
the
the
other
north
side.
side.
on this other
Telegraph.
road? Okay, gotcha. How, Commissioner Anderson, again, how high above the driveways is that overhead power?
We've worked with, that's actually Rocky Mountain Power's system. We are coordinating with them to send our profile underneath their line to verify clearances. I don't know the exact measurement at this time, but we've been working with them closely to make sure that that clearance is provided.
Okay. That's something that, not that it has any bearing on preliminary plat, but something that you'd have to think about with deliveries and stuff like that. You don't have a drywall delivery guy or with a crane or somebody hitting a power line. Okay.
Yeah, the existing poles are fairly
Okay.
tall, so that line is suspended up in the air pretty high.
Okay.
That's just a ground lease under there.
What's that again?
Is that a ground lease under those poles? Or is that purchased?
It's an easement. It's an existing easement right now. Yep.
This is Sheil. I have one question. Across the street to the south, in my eyes, it's Desert Cactus Drive that connects directly to this, and we're naming it Bonnie. Is that correct?
No, I don't know. Not exactly sure the history on Bonnie Lane. I don't know exactly where that came. I think the applicant is proposing to keep Cactus Drive. Is that correct, Royce? So Cactus Drive will actually be the
Desert
street
Cactus
name.
Drive.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. So that will continue for that full length of the street there.
Commissioner Anderson, are these going to be for sale units or for rent units, or what's the long-term?
These are for sale. If I, yes.
Gotcha.
This is Commissioner Musso. Do you have elevations already drawn up on the units?
Yeah, I don't see it on anything we have, but there we go.
Those are the approved elevations right there.
These are the currently approved elevations through the PUD. We are actually proposing a different elevation. That on there, Drew.
Someone needs to turn their microphone on, who's ever
Yeah.
speaking.
You can come up to the microphone, state your name and appreciate you.
Royce Jessup. Drew, we're actually proposing a new elevation for those. It's a more.
I know that, but they're asking what the approved elevations are right now. And until you get your ones approved, these are the ones you're going off of, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's correct, Drew. These elevations are consistent with the currently approved PUD, so these are what's currently planned at the moment. If they want to make changes, we are following the PUD zone change amendment process that we've started with you and staff. So that's still forthcoming.
Any other questions or comments? I look for a motion then. Have we closed the public hearing? Yeah, we have.
Royce Jessup, I just had a question for Drew. It was my understanding that we were proposing a new elevation in this meeting, but
It's in a following zone change amendment.
Oh,
It's in a
okay.
separate application.
okay, if you do care to see it, I do have it here, if you care to see it now.
Well, we better not do that, just for the safety of your public hearing. We don't want that to get held up by anything that was misappropriated at this time. Not against you, I'm not saying you do anything wrong, but we need to keep the commission safe and you guys safe by not showing anything right now till you get into that public hearing at a later date.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? I look for a motion.
It's Commissioner Anderson. I make a motion that we approve preliminary plat for Desert Ridge Phase 1 subdivision located at approximately Bella Vista Drive and 200 South, and move it on to City Council with the standard 12 conditions.
This is Commissioner Musso. I second that.
So I have a first and a second on item 5A, Desert Ridge Phase 1. Let's individual roll call. Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
I'm Shield. I'm an aye also. That item 5A, it will move on to the City Council concerning the Desert Ridge Phase 1 preliminary plat. We'll move to item 6A, which is a public hearing also for consideration and recommendation to the City Council for a zone change request Z-21-11 from PUD Planned Unit Development to RA half residential acreage, minimum half acre lot located at approximately 1050 South, 800 East. The applicant is Telegraph UP&L and Kent Heidman. At this time, we'd like to turn this over to Drew.
I'll take it. Thank you, commissioners. The applicant, as stated, is requesting approval to change the zoning of approximately 2.29 acres. As stated, the request changes from the PUD, which is part of the Mesa Shadows development from years ago. But this part was included in there, but never included in the subdivision process over the years. With that, the owner currently would like to change the zoning and asking and seeking through staff's recommendation, just because the zoning to the east in the Indian Knolls is the RA half. So that's what is before you tonight is residential agricultural half acre minimum. The RA request is for the purpose of removing the 2.29s again out of the PUD zone and into the RA half for future development possibilities. This particular location has a general planned use designation of low density residential, which allows for R110, R112 or greater zoning districts. The surrounding zoning for this parcel is RA half to the east, A20 to the south, and R110 to the north, and PUD to the west. Staff has no concerns with the proposed zone changes outlined. Therefore, staff is fine recommending that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Z-21-11 for the zone change request from PUD to the proposed residential agricultural half acre minimum onto the City Council. Of course, based on your findings in your report below, I'll be glad to answer any questions that the commissioners have on this proposed zone change.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
So Drew, this is Commissioner Musso. So up against the lots along Seminole Way, so it would be the far eastern section of this piece of property. Is that the canal? Or is it an easement along that?
Yeah, you can kind of see, let me, if it's okay, let me change and go to my city map because it shows property lines, and I'll kind of point out that easement that you're talking about. Let me zoom out of here and drag ourselves over that way. And it'll be easier to see once I can do this for you. Okay. Let's see,
You're too far south still.
yeah, sorry, it looked odd, but yet, hey,
Keep going.
I know we're getting close. I just saw Seminole Way, and then here we go. Okay, you can kind of see these white lines. I'm gonna try to annotate right by them. And that is kind of indicates canal easement and is not part of the zone change until you get down farther down here where it comes in. Now there's still a 50-foot easement, but as you can see down on this far end, the ownership of the easement goes from the 50-foot up in here on this north part, but then goes down to nothing down on this far point. But there's still a 50-foot easement. And so it will be on that private property, if that makes sense. I hope that's your question that you're asking, right?
Yeah, that's one of them. So
Okay.
then how wide is that property at the far north end of it? It's got to be fairly narrow, right?
Let me see if I can. Well, it goes to a tip. You can see right here. Can you see my arrow? Oops.
Okay, so let's start where like that 999 South on White Sands Drive is. One more house then, right there. So like from how wide is it from their backyard over to where, there you go, exactly. About how wide is
It
it?
looks about the width of this city street, so I would say it's probably 50, 55 feet up here. Because I'm doing it in relationship to this street over here.
Okay,
So I would say it's 50 to 60 feet, because I think this might be a 60-footer here at Seminole Way.
yeah, I'm trying to picture in my mind how we're going to put houses on that thing. The way
Well, again, it's one lot.
Well,
It's one lot, I don't think, we won't be, it would have to meet, that. So, my understanding with the applicant and talking, is that it'll just be a one lot.
so the whole 2 acres would just be one lot?
Correct.
Oh,
Will they allow animals on that lot, or is it, what will that zoning allow?
Well, the RA does allow for that. You just have to follow the regulations. Now, if you have large animals, here's where it gets sticky. You have to be 100 feet away from any residence. Now, it didn't say property line, it just said residence. Okay, so I'm just gonna follow with me here. So
they got
that
50
100 feet would start from here going this way. They have to keep it 100 feet away from that house. And when a house is built over here on, say, this lot 1052, they would have to be 100 feet from it,
So that's
wherever that animal is, or whatever houses that animal, and 100 feet from the home itself on the property. That's for if you're getting into horses and things like that. So there are some regulations that way, but that would be tough on this. The 100 foot for that horse, it may be able to have a long, narrow pin, but that would be up to them.
So realistically, when we're sitting here looking at this, that thing's going to remain basically as open space, correct? if he throws one house on there? I mean,
Yeah, most of the lot will just be a big backyard.
so it's not going to change basically what's there now.
Correct.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Anderson. Is the applicant here or not? Do we know? No? Okay.
I'm not sure.
My speculation, I know I've looked at this property. It's been for sale as a agricultural for a long time. My guess is he's probably trying to make it more sellable, more marketable. Maybe somebody put the house, but Drew, is this section below him? Does he own that as well? And if
No,
not, how's he getting access to this property?
We own it.
City.
Oh, the city owns it?
City
Okay.
owns this piece. Oh, sorry, I'm just not.
Okay.
I don't know why this thing's so slow, but that's what's next on your agenda, by the way.
Okay.
This piece right here, and that's owned by the city. We had to purchase that so that we could put in Indian Springs Drive.
Hmm.
So we ended up buying this piece. And so it will be maybe on the market. So and that's why we're just gonna zone change it ourselves, our piece. And that, and again, the reason I chose RA half was just because I have PUD over here on the west and I have RA half on this side. And I thought people might get a little high strung if I try to turn this into, because these lots over here are probably anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000. And I just didn't feel comfortable going 8,000 since the general plan is low density anyway. The best I could have done was R110 right here. But I thought people might get uncomfortable thinking that we're gonna have a whole bunch of R110 lots along this whole area.
So the 2.29 acres, is that gonna have an easement through that front lot?
Yes, we would have to, kind of like what we've done before, is we'd probably make a 26-foot wide public utility and drainage and ingress egress easement to get to this back lot. And they're gonna have to share probably a driveway, these two lots, just because we're not supposed to have access on Indian Springs Drive, but there's no other alternative. And so we've learned from the past that we'd probably have to give at least one driveway here, but they'd probably be shared by whoever gets our piece if they split it in half, and then have an easement that goes back to this piece in the back.
So right.
That's just, and we're just thinking out loud on this, that's all. It's not the plan, it's not set in concrete. No, there's no contracts or anything on this piece. City owns it, and that's it. We're just preparing it maybe for a future sale. But that's your next agenda item, not the one we're talking about right now. And I apologize for that. We need to stay focused on this piece up here.
We need to open up for public comments.
Okay, is there any other comments before we open to public comment?
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson. I guess my only comment would be, and maybe this is addressed in the next item, but if someone buys this piece here that we're looking at, and someone else buys the piece from the city later down the road, I mean, is the piece from the city, is it automatically going to come with the requirement to give them access, or is it just going to become a landlocked piece of land?
Can't landlock.
Well, it won't come. I mean, that's a tough question. I don't think we can answer that here tonight. I mean, I'd like to, but I don't think that I can, because that's a decision that has to be made by the city council. I know that doesn't help you, but that's probably the best answer I can give you right now.
Okay, well, this is an item that has a public hearing, so I'd like to open up for public hearing comments. Excuse me, we do have a couple of comments that were emailed to us, and have you all had a chance to review those?
Yes.
So with that in mind, is there anybody in chamber that would like to make some comments? There's a few of them here. Why don't you come up one at a time? State your name, please. Talk clearly so that we can understand.
Good evening, Jared Bowler. I'm a landowner of lot 310, which I think is 1024 on Seminole. And I'm here with several of my neighbors. And I suppose I'll speak for some of them, and some of them will stand and speak for themselves. If you zoom in on this parcel, and I do have things to say about your next agenda item, but sticking to this one here, the concern of the neighbors are, well, several things. Number one, getting, and I think Drew, I think we've talked about this a little bit. I talked with you on the phone the other day. Fire truck, getting a fire truck in there, is that going to be an issue? And you can address all of these in one if you'd like, but certainly that looks like it would be an issue. And then the lack of CCNRs, if you do the RA 1/2, we realize it probably is not going to allow big animals to come in between those two subdivisions. And you've got really a fishbowl effect with that piece of ground. That the piece of ground in question sits higher than the houses on the west, but it sits lower than the houses on the east. And so the only sense that would make to sell that lot as one residential building lot would be to face the house back, and so that the house would face back is what it looks like. The problem is the RA half zoning would allow them to keep all kinds of things on that property. That's the concern. What can be stored? What would the city enforce on that? We view that as a potential junkyard for somebody putting pods and trailers, and it's just really not good for much else. I'm not sure what a private owner would do with it other than a huge long garden, which we would love, but we're scared to death that we might get a bunch of pods and a bunch of trailers and a little dump effect, and now that becomes our view off of both sides of those subdivisions. Can you speak to that? Can anyone speak to that?
Commissioner Anderson, that was kind of my concern, is that there's not a whole lot of, you can maybe put a house down on the bottom end, but you're right. What else are you going to do with the rest of it? Make a football field? I don't know.
Right. We'd love that. That'd be great. But
It could be a park. Yeah.
and originally it was supposed to be a park.
Yeah.
And just by the way, all the subdivisions all around here have been promised a park for years, never got a park. And now you can see the frustration that we might end up with a bunch of storage, who knows what else back there, and nothing we can do about it, because with that zoning, unless the subdivision decided to put into effect CCNRs, which we're not seeing those, that's probably not going to happen. What would be to stop them from storing whatever they'd like out there? Anyway, that's the concern.
This is Sheila. What stops them today? As I drove by it and looked at it, I don't think it's a great piece of, yeah. So
the only thing that stops them right now is no access. There's no access to it.
Yeah.
So I guess this Commissioner Anderson, I guess that's playing devil's advocate. If, let's say it stays agricultural, but they get an access through the next piece, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the other opposite concern, is they could probably store more on it. Right?
Yeah. Correct.
So that's an active canal, is that correct?
Well, and Drew can probably speak to this better than I can, but if you look at how he drew that easement, the canal runs at the center. Correct me if I'm wrong, Drew. The canal runs directly down that easement. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you take out that 50-foot easement, it really makes that just a really long, skinny piece of ground that's only good for, storing small items on it, or a big long garden. The other thing is, as we look, well, it's more for the next agenda item, but the city, I think for a long time, has wanted to connect those trails and make that a trail across there. I realize it's for the next agenda item. We can talk about that in a minute, but I can't imagine why the city would want to sell the only access to that instead of use that as a parking lot or a trailhead, that next parcel down below. But that's another item.
Okay, we appreciate your comments, Mr. Buller. Any other comments that somebody would like to share that's different than that? Okay. I guess we can close the public hearing. I have a motion for that.
This is Commissioner Musso. I propose that we close the public hearing.
Commissioner Bullock, I second that.
Have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With the public hearing closed, is there any other comments for staff? Is there any?
Yeah, I just want to address, that he asked the question, what about that? And it's like I tried to explain is whether it's zoned, any zoning on it, unfortunately, people can put, and people do in this city, they put trailers, they put Connex cargo containers. I mean, I have that issue going on, and it doesn't matter whether it's RA half or it's R16 or it's PUD or it's so on and so on. Just so the commissioners know that no matter what the zone, whether it's a zone change from this to that, even today, that could be, if they came in and he says, okay, I'll keep it PUD, shows a plan and gets approved, that you're still going to have the same issue. That, we may have to fight. Now, there are some things that we can help keep that curtailed. It depends on what they put on there, but for the most part, that can happen anywhere. That can happen in his subdivision or the one on this side. Now, some have greater CC&Rs, there's no doubt, and I appreciate that's one time I think people are glad to have CC&Rs. But again, a city's not involved in CC&Rs. We can't make people do them, and we can't enforce them of people who have them. So that's a tough thing, no matter it's this piece or any other piece, and no matter what zone it is. I just wanted that for you commissioners to understand that. Again, the RA was picked just to match, trying to keep things consistent, because that's what we try to do in our zoning. Yeah, we could have come back and asked for an R1, something different, and that still may be an option. Because let me just turn on my zoning box for you. And you can see the different zones that are around this piece. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. You can see the variety. Now, again, it's this brown piece right here where my arrow's on. So I have the RA half over here in the dark green. The Ag 20 is down below. Then the brown is the PUD, and I got the yellow R110, which, you could consider that because it would tie that together. And then I've got the R18 as the orange color. And that could probably be considered because you are touching up here to do that. But if you go to those smaller lots, that just means the potential of more lots. And that might not be a bad thing for some people.
So Drew, what's the advantage of changing it from the PUD to the RA 1/2? I mean, there has to be an advantage, or otherwise they wouldn't ask for it.
Well, it's all about, because the current owner, I'm just going to be honest with you, the current owner is looking to purchase the city's piece. That is his hope and his intent. And so, but we didn't want him to come in and ask for a zone change for our piece, and then to make it feel like like we were given obligation to that. So that's why these are separate items. The advantage for him, because of PUD, you have to come back and show a design. You guys know this, we've been through this. It's a little bit harder because even right now it's his own PUD, but there's no approved plan. So he'd have to come and bring you a whole plan and show you designs and landscaping and all that, even if it was a one lot PUD, design approval. So that one's a little more cumbersome to leave it PUD just because of what's required in our PUD right now, getting that design approved and all that he'd have to do up front. So the RA half is just coming again, trying to keep consistent with this property over here, the Indian Knolls development, but it could easily have gone. In fact, they came in and asked, I think, for R1 10 or 12, and I just said, well, I'd rather you come in RA half because that's what I want to do with our piece, just because I'm trying to be consistent with the Indian Knolls development to the east. That's the only reason that came about.
So the piece that goes to the cul-de-sac of Red Sands Drive, is this zone the same PUD?
Yeah, that's this brown strip up here by this cul-de-sac. If I zoom in there, again, this is where this, Mesa Shadows right here was promised the park by the developer. He never did put it in, and he went bankrupt. So couldn't go back and make him put the park in over here. And it's just been chasing tails for the last 20 years on that. So
Tough one.
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson, is the applicant on this, or I guess the owner is he like the original owner from when it was, the original development that kind of went belly up, or is he just someone that picked up a lot, after?
yeah, I don't think he was part of the original development, to my understanding, because I have a different name that I won't bring up in this meeting because I shouldn't. It's not fair to him, but I don't know if Mr. Heidemann was part of that and owned this piece from the beginning and was part of this, and it just never came to fruition. I can't answer that. That's way before my time, and I don't know the full history way back when on this.
This is Shill. I'm just gonna throw this out from the hip. But if we changed the piece that the city owns, is it currently a PUD? No, it's not.
It's zoned
So
ag.
if we change that to a PUD and we kept this at a PUD, made them work for it, maybe that would keep it clean. I don't know. It sounds to me like a PUD, they have to jump through a little more hoops, to have some design, have some ideas. Just a thought. Drew, do you think anything on that?
Well, it's probably not a bad idea, because then they would all have to come, whatever happened, they'd have to bring you that design.
Right.
We would and they would.
Well, makes us all work.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Just associate stay PUD.
That's what I think.
Because then it would be out there through the public hearing process that even the neighbors on both sides would be able to follow.
Any other questions? We need to close the public hearing. Or
Yep.
Did we already close
We
the public,
closed.
Sheldon?
We
Yes.
did close it. So if there's any other comments, or is there any motions to be made?
This is Commissioner Musso. I make the proposal that we deny the request to rezone approximately 2.929 acres located at approximately 1050 South, 800 East, and leave it currently as a PUD at this time.
Commissioner, could you please give a reason why, if you're ever gonna, it's a little training, whenever you recommend denial, or if that's the way it goes, you always have to give a reason why you're denying.
Well,
You love the reasoning, okay.
No, I just had, that's just what.
No, and I understand what you're saying, Drew. The ground really isn't suitable for RA 1/2 development because of the not topography, but the shape of the land doesn't lend itself to that. It's going to leave a big long finger to the north that's so narrow that you're not going to be able to develop it, and that at that point it could end up with an eyesore to the public. The way it is right now as PUD, it can't become that because there is no legal access to the property, unfortunately.
But if we change the other one to PUD, he could.
Drew, I have a
buy
question.
that.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'm sorry, are you done?
That's fine.
So if we approve the R1/2, could he come back eventually and cut off the the top of that lot and sell it to whoever owns that lot up by the cul-de-sac. So they would have a bigger lot there.
Absolutely.
Or sell part of this, because there's so many acres there, sell it to the homeowners so they could extend their backyards.
That's a possibility as well. Yes.
Okay, I was just curious if that's,
Yep.
I mean, I'm for the R1 half myself. I think that it gives the landowner the right to do what he wants with his land. And I mean, you can only get one lot on there because of the access. So you're not gonna have a lot of lots if you go to a PU. I mean, we're talking like we want to say, all right, well, I want to know what you're building on this when it's a house. I mean, as long as it's his, he can do what he wants. It's a planned unit development, but for one house, it seems like a lot of work to do for all of us when he has the right to do what he wants with that land. I believe that, I mean, you can't subdivide it because you're not going to have ingress and egress. Is that correct, Drew?
It would be very difficult. Yes.
So it's going to be one lot unless he breaks it up and sells it to the homeowners as theirs. And then that would have to go through the legal side of things. I don't see a reason to make it a PUD to put one house on there. And then he can put whatever he wants back there. Once he gets the design, he gives a pretty house and then still do what he wants. And we've just wasted a bunch of time and taxpayers' money.
It's already PUD though.
Okay, so
But
we'd
we're not
still have to
changing
approve it. We'd still have to approve what he wants.
Right. But
And
now,
then he can still do whatever he wants.
but see, okay, so Drew, another question, I guess, is that if there's no legal access, how can that be? Because isn't it technically, isn't it Utah state law that you can't not have legal access to a property?
I'm not sure that what that question was.
Well, no, you have to have access to every single parcel. At least that's everything that I've ever been taught. And
To
I'm just not
develop,
sure.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, so where is the legal access to this property as it sits now?
Well, right now he doesn't have one. He'd have to get one, but that's only concerned at development time. That we would be concerned about that. Doesn't mean we can't consider zone changes or things like that that have nothing to do with the development aspect at that point. Does that help you?
Well, not really, because if he wanted to develop this right now and build a house on it, where is his access? He doesn't have any.
That's correct.
All he's asking for is his own change, though.
No, I understand that, but how can you have a parcel of property, period, without access? That's my question.
You can buy landlocked property.
I don't think so. You're not supposed to. Okay.
You can buy landlocked property all day long. It's just, if you want to ever do anything with it, it's your job to figure out a way to get access to it, or you're just stuck with landlocked property. Happens all the time.
So the only way if he had the idea of selling this to these properties to the east or to the west to extend their backyards, does it have to have this new zone, the R? So the PUD would not work for that opportunity to sell those off. Is that correct?
And I had the same question to this Commissioner Anderson. If, let's say he wanted to sell, he came up with a plan, and let's say everybody along one side or the other decided they wanted to extend their backyard, would that be something that he could bring as a PUD and say, hey, I want to split all these off to all these houses, or is that something he can't do unless the zoning is changed?
Really, the west properties are the only ones that can buy it because of the easement with the canal.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, because the Indian Knolls people wouldn't do them any good to pick that up because they have a 50-foot canal easement run through there. Now, it's kind of a loaded question, but I'm going to do it as quick as I possibly can. If it stays PUD, there's no problem because it just stays PUD. They can extend their backyards. Okay, no issue. But if it gets changed, it's still not so much an issue because this city allows for 2 zones to be on one property. That's the quick answer.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of in a quandary, my understanding, because we only have really 4 people here. So, and this does not go on to city council as far as I know. Is that correct,
Oh,
Drew?
it does. No, you'll make a recommendation on this, and the city council will vote on it. Now, I have to digress a little bit because my mind just said, hey, Drew, you're forgetting something. Commissioner Musso made a motion.
Made a motion, yeah, we need to.
And
act on
I
it.
just asked him to put and I apologize, I shouldn't let it go as far as we did, but my mind says, hey, we need to backtrack here. And I asked Commissioner Musso to give a reason for denial, then it'll be out there for a second. So I think we need to go back there right now.
Okay.
Because a motion has been made, but I just need a reason for denial.
And the reason for denial, I thought I expounded it. Now you're gonna make me remember what I said. So, due to the configuration of the property with the north end being so narrow that would be my reasoning, because it would be difficult to develop into any type of anything.
Good.
That would be my motion. So it either has to have a second or it has to die.
Right.
Correct.
Or we can, what's the word for none of us agreeing and we just,
It dies due to lack of a second.
Against it. That's how you technically should do it.
Yeah, that's what you would do, chairperson. If the other two don't want to second that, that's what you would do. Just helping you out in this role tonight.
yay, nay?
Well, let's get on with something though.
Yep. Well, we either need a second or we
You
need
can
to.
second it and then we can
rescind.
vote against it if you want to. We just got to do something with the motion because it's hanging out there.
And if they don't want a second, then Commissioner Schill, you would just say the motion dies due to lack of a second.
And then do we just rescind it and send it
No,
on
you just
to
have more
the?
discussion on it.
That's fine.
Okay.
And you can table it if you want to wait for Commissioner Hanson to join you 2 weeks. That's an option as well.
What's the other
I think right
option?
now you need to just say the motion dies, please, is probably what I would do.
Okay, motion dies. Sorry.
No skin off my teeth.
So do we have another motion or do we want to table this? You guys are making me work. Okay.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll make a motion to approve the zone request of approximately 2.29 acres located at approximately 1050 south and 800 east from the current planned unit development zoning to a proposed residential agricultural half acre minimum zoning delegation.
I have a new proposal. Do I have a second or any other comments? Well.
Commissioner Anderson, I second.
So I have a first and a second. Let's have individual roll call. Commissioner Musso,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Nay. Bullock,
Mr.
aye.
Bullock, aye. Mrs. Schill, Yeah, I know. I'm really not for it because I think, I don't see, I say nay. Okay, here we go.
So it's split.
Split.
Okay.
So is that the motion dies, Drew?
That motion dies, yes.
Do we table it? No, we didn't.
Sounds like that may be your option then, if that's what everybody's thinking.
Can we try it again, or do we need to ask the applicant if he, yeah, okay. Table it. Give me a motion.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion that we table this agenda item.
This is Musso, I second.
Have a first and a second to table this item. Individual voting, Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock,
Nay.
Shill, aye.
Now, hey, can I just have you guys put a date on that for me, please? And your next date would be June 2nd,
Next time it comes up.
but we have to put a date on it.
So we'll deny that. The next hearing will be on June 2nd, 2021. So it's tabled until June 2nd, 2021. Is that correct, Drew?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, onward and upward. Item 6B. 6B is also a public hearing for consideration and recommendation to the city council, a zone change request Z-21-12 from A20 agricultural minimum 20 acres to RA half residential agricultural half acres minimum located at approximately 850 East Indian Springs Drive, and the applicant is Washington City. We'll turn this time over to Drew for comments.
As stated, the applicants requesting the zone change of approximately 1.14 acres. The requested change is from the current zoning of Ag 20, agricultural minimum 20 acres, to a proposed residential agricultural half acre RA half zoning designation. The RA half request is for the purpose of removing the the 1.14 acres out of the A20 in preparation of possible future sale of the parcel by Washington City. This particular location has a general plan land use designation, again, of a low density residential, which allows for R110, R112 or greater zoning districts. The surrounding zoning to this parcel is RA half to the east, PUD to the north and west, and Ag 20 to the south. Staff has no concerns with the proposed zone changes outlined. Therefore, staff would like to recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval of Z-21-12 for the zone change request from agricultural 20 acre minimum to the proposed residential agricultural half acre minimum onto the city council. And based on the findings in your report, be glad to answer any questions. Again, it's this piece just due south of the one we just were on. And so.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Any questions or comments regarding this from commissioners?
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson. Where this is asking for R1 half, and this is 1.17 acres, is there enough room on this with that canal easement that it could be subdivided into 2 half acre lots?
I think we figured it could. Yeah, we kind of did the math on the canal, because what will happen is the city's not going to sell the canal easement to a future buyer. We're going to retain that. So this area here would not be part of any sale. That way we don't have to go back and get it at a future date for the possible trail easement. So we would not put that as part of the sale, this area I'm hashing out here. And I'm pretty sure we did some math on it and it would come out right at what we need.
Did that include a road going through it, Drew?
Well, we didn't plan on a road. We planned on an ingress egress easement that we've done in the past.
26 foot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does the sewer run there? How does that connect? So it's down Indian?
I would love to show you, but they don't give me those keys to drive that particular graphic on the screen. Brandon, is it in Indian Springs Drive?
Brandon Wright with Public Works. It is in Indian Springs Drive. It's right about the corner, the west corner of that lot. Just barely past the property line. It's not that far, Drew.
Okay.
Be back the west corner by that 1145 south, the back corner.
So is it deep enough that if there was a lot in the back, it would fall?
We haven't even got that yet. I haven't shot anything yet, so we have no depths.
Well, yeah, okay. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. Get to the public hearing.
Yeah. Let's open this up to a public hearing. I don't know if we had one for the last one. And I'm not so sure. I think they kind of both go together. Is there anybody in chamber that would like to make some comments?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Williams. Sorry, I was up earlier. So we're finally at my piece. I'm 1145 South, right there on the corner. So I have some concerns of, how that would be developed, obviously. So if there was an easement, would that be a driveway that would be along the existing block wall that's there now? Would there be an additional block wall going up? Would they build that property up in elevation and then build a two-story home and basically just overshadow those 2 or 3 homes right there? I know it's a lot of questions, but we've put up with the dust and the dirt coming down the road for the last 4 or 5 months. We've got our AC unit right on this side. So we have to turn it off during the day so we don't get any dust in the house. And we put up with that, and that's fine, and that's progress. We understand that. But with this piece of property right there, I'm kind of concerned how it would be developed. I like the idea earlier. It would be nice if there was a park there. There's a lot of kids that play around that neighborhood, play on that road. Those trucks are barreling down that road going 35, 40 miles an hour right when they get to that base. And I've seen kids out on the street, on the sidewalk. It's kind of a hazard right now, I'll be honest with you. We had a 5-minute warning on a dynamite blast on the mountain about two weeks ago. They gave us about a 5 to 15-minute warning about blasting on the mountain. We already have a crack through our ceiling in our dining room from our living room from the last blast 2 years ago. And we just said, we love living there and we're fine with it. I just would like to know how it would be developed. If you opened it up, are they going to be allowed to build up the property like they're pushing the dirt all over the mountain right now? So would that house sit up, ridiculous? How ridiculous would it look right there? Anyway, that's my questions.
Thank you. I don't know that we really have those answers. The only answer I think we've kind of covered was access into that was a 26-foot right in the middle of the property, shared driveway. But as far as restrictions on house and
Well, that's not necessarily. I mean, it would just be zoned R1/2, and
right,
whoever ended up buying it would do whatever they want, or maybe put one house on it, or
Yep.
whatever. So it doesn't necessarily have anything. It's just
That's true.
if the other property ever needed access, they'd have to get whoever buys this property to give them some sort of a shared access point. So as far as development, I mean, who knows if it's R1/2. So I guess to answer your question, if it's R1/2, then it means that ultimately somebody could put a maximum of 2 houses on there, whatever that looks like. So it's probably not likely that they would build it up in height because that would be extremely expensive just for 2 houses. But whoever bought it, I guess, we'd have to look at that. This is just a zone change.
Right. Yep, just a zone change.
Drew, how long ago did the city purchase this property? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's been a while because we had to purchase it when we put Indian Springs Drive in. And it was not too long after we got that bridge approved over the Virgin River because the state or the federal put that in and said we had to eliminate a road that used to run way over there. Let me see if I can drag that area for you guys. It's been quite a few years. You can see this old roadway here where my arrow is. That's how people used to get up in that area up through here. When that bridge came in, the federals who we got the money in the bridge from said we had to close that road down. So that forced us to go over here and push this road through into Seminole Way so that people can then come up this way into the area up in here. It's been a while.
Anybody else in chambers like to make? Oops, anybody else like to make some comments? State your name, please.
I'm Brent Stagg. I live just a couple doors down from Mr. Williams. We have a lot of concerns with this coming in, not knowing what they're going to do and what the plan is. Obviously, there's lots of rumors that we hear that are not acceptable. All the houses there, especially the first 4, sit quite a bit down lower than the land above them. And we have a 6-foot wall on our side, and it's 1.5 feet on the other side, which means if anyone comes in, they're going to put a wall that's going to be, our wall's not going to be 10 feet plus, which is very, say, disturbing, I guess. The question I have for the city is why would you want to sell this land when you were hoping to put a trail? Supposedly, we hear they want to do a trail there. You already own the land. Why not put a trailhead there? It's a perfect place for a trailhead. You've already got the land. You own it. You won't have to go back and buy it back later. The canal is basically useless except for a trail, that easement. It goes many miles. For me, I would rather see it be a PUD than and I honestly, I don't know enough to know for sure, but I would rather see it not be zoned to where somebody doesn't have to put a plan in before to get it approved, that they could just go in and do a lot less planning ahead. This zoning that's being requested seems more open and more ability to whoever's development to do whatever they want and not be controlled. Currently, the homes below and the homes above are governed by CCNRs. That property is not. We at least have to follow rules, and we have some we have to answer to. The concern is with this one and even the previous one we discussed, not having CCNRs that they could kind of go about. So that's just my comments. Why sell the property when it could be used more beneficial for the entire community and not just those in the neighborhood, but everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Jared Bowler, also a neighbor on the Seminole side. And these are all good points. I echo all of those. The other question that we would have is, and Drew, maybe you can speak to this. the applicant on this is Washington City. My understanding is that this piece of ground would be sold. If it is sold, the first right of refusal would go to the Sandberg family. And if the Sandbergs pass on it, it should go to public auction. And I realize this might be a question more for city council, but can you speak to that at all, Drew? Is there anything you can enlighten us on with that?
Well, I'm not sure how all that works, because I'm not in the privy of buying and selling land for the city. So I don't want to misspeak on this piece of what the state law allows on that, because again, I know we don't go out on other properties. I think they did go out to sealed bids, but I'm not sure, all the ins and outs on it, how it goes about.
So to raise the concern of the neighbors as well, if it is supposed to go to a sealed bid or to public auction at this point, I guess we'd like to raise that officially on the record as a concern as well, as to why is it going to a specific owner? Why is the city changing the zoning on it right now in preparation for a sale and not disclosing that to the public? So that'd be
Well, let's back up here. You're assuming we're saying that is for this particular person above you, or this piece. That's not what we've said at all. This is not in preparation for him, and there is no contract. There's been nothing drawn up. This is not for Mr. Heidemann. Okay, so I don't want to go to assumption there. It just says for a future sale, but it doesn't say a future sale to Mr. Heidemann.
Understood.
We're not, and I hope nobody even thinks that or believes that. That's not what this is about. Please understand that.
Understood. Okay. All right. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other comments within the chamber? With no other comments, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Musso, second.
First and the second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
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 With the close of the public hearing, is there any other comments from commissioners to staff on this property? Or is there a motion?
Drew, this is Commissioner Anderson. Because it's been brought up a number of times by neighboring residents. I know you said that the city would plan to retain the canal easement in case the city ever wanted to do a trail there. So that's not really an issue. That possibility is still there. A lot of people spoke about a park, but again, wanting to put a park in, that requires a whole lot, either a developer putting it in or city council deciding to spend city money on it or whatever. I mean, has there ever been any serious talk about putting a park in here, or?
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be able to be a city park by park definition. A park has to be a 4 point some odd acres to be a city park. Now, trailhead is an option that could be, but I don't ever remember this being talked about. And the city could retain this piece. That is their option, but they would have to go through and be put on a capital facilities plan, sit an X amount of time there, things like that, or be put in a budget cycle that's what they're going to do. So the city could hold on to that, and they may. So,
But city council, have they ever talked about doing anything there that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. No, not at this present time. And this one might not be bad to sit and wait on the 2 weeks and, find out some more information. Not that the two pieces have to go together. Again, I'm not trying to send that impression anyway, but when they do go, I think that they both should, if they end up going in private ownership, I think both of them need to end up being zoned whatever the same, if that gets to that point. I wouldn't want one to be zoned one way and another, differently. Because it doesn't help the two properties if they end up in private ownership, both of them.
And the zoning that the city is asking for is the same as Indian Knolls, correct? Right above it?
Correct. Again, and that was only chosen just because, you know, because of what the zoning is on Indian Knolls, you know, just trying to keep consistency. And that's the only reason. There's no other, nothing else behind it. Was just trying to be consistent with surrounding zoning, and that was it. And usually we try to stay with the higher end instead of forcing lower ones, especially on people who have half acres already. And then to see that piece change to a R1 10 or 12. So it doesn't mean that's the only reason the RA half was picked, and that's all.
So this is Commissioner Anderson again, I guess. So in answer, in responding to some of the comments in the chamber today, they were concerned about what, you know, possibly could go in there. If it was zoned the same as Indian Knolls, then homes in Indian Knolls would be a good example of what could go in there, correct?
Well, it is, but the problem with that is that in Indian Knolls, it may have the RA half. I think that's just because whoever way back when and they started doing Indian Knolls to get the half acres, and that was the choice they made. But I think, but the people that live in Indian Knolls right now may not, they don't like all the things you can do in an RA half. And I can tell you, because their CCNRs probably wouldn't allow them. You have, you know, a couple people there that live in Indian Knolls could probably attest to that. That they even if it's zoned RA half, I bet you their CCNRs wouldn't let them do probably half the things that you can do in an RA half. And I'm just guessing maybe only half, it might be even less than that.
Right. I'm just trying to draw some comparison as to what they can compare it to. I mean,
I know that's
without,
what's tough about
forcing
all
them
this.
to annex into someone's HOA, it's kind of hard to.
Correct. That's where the rub is on this. I get that with everybody around them. You know, they're two difficult pieces. There's no doubt about it.
Now, another question. If it were to go to PUD, then I guess that could lend itself to have different types of units or more units that might be less desirable, right? Because if you got PUD, you could have quite a bit more flexibility in what they wanted to do. It'd be more of a process, but they could kind of.
Yeah, the densities could go up. Yes, that's what your point
That's what
is.
I'm getting at, yeah.
Yeah,
So
the densities
what I'm
could.
getting at is that R1 half might be the safer thing to keep it at least consistent with Indian Knolls.
But again, I don't think PUD is a bad option in this case, because then the neighbors can all see what's coming, like the one gentleman said. Now, we don't treat everybody that way. Again, we can't, you know, because if the city's going to do that, it's like I've had this discussion before. If that's how everybody in the city and the council wants to do, then we need to get rid of straight zoning and go right to all PUDs and all PCDs. Now, there's pros and cons with that, believe me. But the one gentleman spoke to, I'd like to see, and but that's what, you know, a lot of straight zoning is that, you know, you're just going to get half acre lots or 10,000 square foot lots or 50, and that's all you know, on the straight zoning side of it. And that, again, and that has pros and cons with it as well. And now you see why my job is just so much fun.
So if we do not recommend this to go to the RA half, I guess we would deny it. Is that correct?
You could just recommend denial, that's fine. And just say, because you want to see it at a later
It would
date or
come back.
whatever.
The applicant
You know
would
what's
have
going to
come back.
happen.
If they would want it to go to a PUD, the applicant would have to reapply for that.
Yeah, but it's still, you're going to recommend that to the city council, and they can either uphold your recommendation, or they can, you know, turn it a different direction and modify yours and vote it. So that's their option as a city council.
Okay.
And this wouldn't hurt staff's feelings at all. If that's how the commission felt, to send it that way as a denial.
Okay. So I look for a motion or more comments.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion that we, well, I guess I better pull my thing up so you can see what I'm saying. Hold on. Come on. Thank you. My screen went blank. Make a motion to approve the request to rezone approximately 1.14 acres at approximately 850 East Indian Springs Drive from agricultural A20 to the proposed residential RA 1/2 with the, I guess there are no conditions, and pass it on to city council for consideration.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second that.
So I have a first and a second on item 6B. I'm looking for, I'll have roll call. Commissioner Musso,
Nay.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Bullock,
Aye.
and Commissioner Schill is a nay. So there we go. So Drew,
Yes.
looks like we're tabling that item also.
Well, unless you guys want to, unless two of you want to try to talk one of the other two into one way or the other, that's an option too, but tabling might not be a bad idea till you get Commissioner Hanson back in with you.
Well, my case is to go to a PUD like the other property. That's kind of where I am on it. I shot it out when we were talking about the other one. I think it could bring smaller units in there. I don't disagree with that. And I don't think that's all bad either. It's going to require some development. It's going to cost some money to put some dirt in there. And maybe that would pencil out as a PUD at that point to have a little higher density there. I don't know if the neighbors want that, but it's going to have to go through and get that approval anyway. So it gives them a little bit of flexibility on that. With smaller units, they're probably not going to have as much garbage around them. So that's my case.
So this is Commissioner Anderson. I'll play devil's advocate with you. If you do that with PD, and again, I don't know exactly because I'm just guesstimating on the size there, but if you did PUD for both of them, you're probably going to get 6 to 7 houses in there, and they're all going to be small, similar to the community here on the west. And you'll have, probably at least 7 houses in there. If you do the RA 1/2, you're going to have 2, maybe 3 houses in there. So
Here's
just some food for thought.
Here's the other thing. There's a shared access in there, so you can't get very many in there. So if you leave it at the R 1/2, they get to, you have your access in there. You're going to get 3 homes in there, max. Is what I'm looking at, because there's not going to be enough road to go up in there and split that big one to have with driveways, first of all. So if it's half-acre lots, you're only getting 3 homes in there. I mean, are we going to make it go to a PUD to approve 3 homes? You're either, what's the point of planning commission? I mean, I feel like we shouldn't be telling everybody what to build and how to build, as long as it fits in the general area. That's my opinion. That's why I think it should be the R 1/2 the way they have it designed, because you're still only going to get 3 on there, but why go through all that trouble? I mean, there's still code that they'll have to meet the building code with. So, I mean, it's not like they're going to pull a pre-manufactured home on there. So, but that's my opinion on it.
Commissioner Anderson, so I think that the R1/2 is the best use of the space because it limits the density in the area. It keeps it similar to Seminole or to Indian Knolls. And actually it reduces most of the concerns that the people in here have said, even though they don't want it that. I think it actually reduces the likelihood because it reduces traffic. It reduces the amount of people that can store junk in their backyard. If you go PUD, you're going to have, you could just open up a can of worms and everybody may be back saying they hate the PUD, but the likelihood of once it goes to PUD that it's going to get passed is a lot higher. And they could have all sorts of stuff in there. I voted no for the previous piece, not necessarily because I'm against it going to R1/2. I just think it's premature on that until we see what in the world's going to happen with this piece. That's why I voted no. Is I think it's the wrong timing to really talk about that. I'm not really, I couldn't decide whether I was for or against it because I think it's the wrong timing more than anything. But I think this piece fits the area. It's the exact same use as Indian Knolls. You got 2 houses max that'll go on it, maybe just 1 house.
What do you think?
So I think if we throw it into PUD just because we're kicking the can down the road, that I think people could be a whole lot less happy. I think people think they might be happier with that, but I think they
That
may
could
be
be.
less happy with it, quite a bit less happy with it.
Could be.
You could end up with anything. You could end up with a bunch of cottage homes. You could end up with,
Well, you could, I guess
Tons of
you
stuff.
could end up with an 8-plex or
You
a couple
could.
of 4-plex.
you could if it was PUD, but it's not likely to happen, but
Yeah.
it could. So I think something is going to happen here. I don't think that there's ever going to be a city park here. I mean,
No.
there probably will be a trail here, but I doubt there'll ever be a city park because
Well, I
city
can't see a
parks are
trailhead.
it's not big enough for a city park. And I mean, those things are put in by development, not by the city just deciding they want to do it. And so it's not going to happen. And if something's going to be built, RA1/2 is going to have the lowest density and the least impact on the residents around them than any other option. So the only benefit to PUD would be that it's a lengthier process. They have to show a little more design and people could see what it is, but it doesn't mean it's any easier to disapprove or, to stop it. It just means there might be a little more, transparency on the way to see what's going in, but it's a lot harder for them to stop it from going in too. Whereas this, the only thing that can go in are 2, maybe 3 houses on half-acre lots, tops. I mean, it's pretty straightforward what they can put in there. So that's my.
Yeah, and they're gonna have to have services, so, and maybe the services can't even.
I think the RA1/2, I think everyone's worried about all this growth and this and that around them and the amount of houses being built and so forth. RA1/2 is going to be the least amount of construction and everything else going on. So it's my 2 cents.
So Drew, back in the day with the Mesa Shadows PUD, did they end up ever bonding for the park or did they not? They don't bond for parks.
Yeah, they didn't bond. It was part of what the amenity that was approved for it. And so it just kept being put off and put off. Again, this is way before my time.
Right, I understand.
And it just never came about. And then, I think the developer kept promising and promising, but then before you knew it, he was gone, and then things went bad for him and ended up filing for bankruptcy. Is the story I heard. Again, I'm
So
just
I guess,
passing on.
so I guess for question, this is not regarding this, in all honesty, but do they bond for parks now? So when a development comes in with a PUD and they say, we're going to put this park in and all that stuff, I mean, does the city make them bond that? Or I know we make them typically in the first phase, we have them do the amenity package.
Yeah, see, that's what we do now, because we don't bond for it. We have them do a progression of, by this will be, and like you did out at, let's say, Scenic Sunrise area, where that park, was a full city park, but we let them put in, with phase 1, they had to put the parking and stuff for the trailhead that was right there. Phase 2, they had to put in extra more parking. Phase 3 was all the bathrooms
Yeah.
and all that. And then phase 4, they had to put in, the playing field. So that one was designed out in kind of that agreement because of the zoning approval, the way it was. So that one came to you in phases, but other times in PUDs that are smaller, you make them do it within X amount of C of O's, which is what I like. Cause then you approved it that way. We don't give them any more certificate, any more building permits till they get that in. That's the way I like to do it. That gives them a chance to, generate some money to help pay for the amenity after what we always pick a third of the units. You guys in the city council have been very consistent the last couple of years on saying that, 1/3 of these, then this has to be done. And I really like that approach that we've been doing lately.
All right, thank you for the education. Because the only reason I ask is that to me, it makes complete sense that you combine all three of those parcels.
We've been trying to get everybody together on doing that and make one plan to come through there. And I think that still is the best viable option, to be perfectly honest with you.
Belongs to Mesa, the top part belongs to the Mesa Saddles PUD.
That's the hard one to get.
Because there's nobody in control of it, or what?
I wish I knew, because at one time I heard they were trying to unload it because they were tired of paying the taxes on it. But I've had people get a hold of their HOA and they're just, I don't know what it is, why it's being so difficult to get it out.
Is anybody in Mesa Shadows?
You have 2 of them there tonight.
Yeah, we do. He's coming.
Brent Stagg, my understanding is none of us have cared enough to go to the meetings to sell it. It's been tabled a number of times and no one shows up to the meeting to sell
Nobody
it.
gives a
Because you have to have a certain number.
percentage.
And I mean, yeah, I believe we want to sell it, but no one wants to go and do it. So that's welcome to our neighborhood. So.
No, it's not.
So if 2 of you have not convinced the other 2, just for everybody's sake, you might want to consider a table.
It's Commissioner Anderson. I'll remake the motion to approve zoning. All our screens went blank. You got a paper. There you go.
Yep.
There you go. There.
Sorry.
Request to rezone approximately 1.1 acres located at 850 East Indian Springs Drive from A20 zoning to the proposed RA1 zone and move on to city council for consideration.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I second that.
I have a first and a second. Roll call. Musso,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Bullock.
Aye.
This is Sheila and I'm also an aye. This passes, goes to the city council, and that is the extent of our meeting tonight. Make a motion to close.
Commissioner Anderson, I make a motion to close the meeting.
This is Commissioner Bullock. I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. We adjourn. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Everyone else has left the call.